Hello, I'm Rebecca of the Garden Gate Flower Company.
And I'm Grace of Grace Alexander Flowers.
And we've come together to create Stuart and Alexander Gather at the Garden Gate.
A podcast taking you behind the scenes of two gardens, what we've been up to inside, outside and out and about. Yeah, it feels quite timely this as well because, I don't know about you, but the sun's finally out here. So I feel a bit daft that I've been waiting for the sunshine and here I am sitting in front of my computer and I'm desperate to start my dahlias.
I thought exactly the same. And it's funny because given that I have to set the alarm for pretty much the same time every day to get the kids off to school, I have just noticed it's getting so much lighter now. So when the alarm goes off at 6:20, it is already light through the window. And my birthday is actually next week. And I always have to remind myself in like January and February, by the time it's your birthday, Becca, you will be getting up in the light and the children will be coming back from school and college in the light. And it's a massive,
Huge.
It does make me feel suddenly so much better. Although, can we just take a minute how awful the weather has been? I know it's a really British thing to talk about, but I really have upped my research into buying a house in Tuscany recently. I don't know whether it's particularly, I don't think it is particularly Cornwall. I don't know what you found where you are.
To be fair,
but we are
in the massive scheme of things, we're not very far apart. I know Cornwall is so long, it feels like you're a million miles away, and a trip down to see you would be something I'd plan well ahead of time, but I'm not that far away from you really in summer. And oh my God, it's just soggy. It's just constantly soggy. I'm desperate to mow because I'm trying to put some beds in outside and I just need to get the grass down before I start doing no-dig beds. And I haven't had a day where it's not rained for what feels like forever.
So even here where it's said we're going to get a day of dry, it has rained. And the difference between being on the land on 2 days of dry versus day of dry, even if it's part dry and day, the difference in gardening is really hard. The only advantage of this is definitely the weeds are coming up a lot easier. But it is pretty miserable and our forecast is still not looking very good down here.
No.
Which is then trying to find a little bit of beauty in around it. And I will say, for my inn.
You're indoors.
For my inn this week.
Can I go for it?
So my inn this week, and it's not really massively surprising, to be quite honest with you, given what we do, is really investing in terracotta pots and planting your spring bulbs in little terracotta pots. Because, and I've thought about this a lot more recently, and as you know, I've got a garden out of the front of my house, which I have to have a lot in raised beds because we have a high water table. I feel like I'm really getting to grips with pots and things, which, again, the flip side is they're not great in the summer because of watering. But bulbs in pots does just mean if you can't get out into your garden, taking them in for the day is so nice. Like, it's so beautiful. And I've got behind me, as we record, Fritillaries, snakes Fritillaries, and also mascara. And I quite like to plant mine in single varieties. But what I did think this year, which I've maybe, because I've thought about it more because the weather's not been so good, is I'm going to, all those little tiny little vintage terracotta pots you get where you just go, oh, I need 1 million of those, but I don't really know what I'm going to do with them. And actually the reality is they're not that great come summer. They are going to be my definite to pot up this year. So when I'm doing my bulb order this year, which, let's be honest, as soon as these all die, we'll be thinking about our next bulb order, won't we? I am going to plant them up with smaller varieties that would mean I could bring in groups of inside. Let's not think just one little display. Let's think multiple ones so that you can leave 5 or 6 outside and let's bring 5 or 6 inside. Do check for slugs. I have had a few instances of the kitchen table being extra protein.
Those beautiful Arctic Bells ones, really gorgeous. And they're a couple of years in now and they look amazing. But I was doing that. Do they need the light to feed the bulb or do they need to be dry to not get waterlogged? Because I'm afraid the bowl hasn't got a drainage hole. It's a lovely old mixing bowl. So they were a bit in out. So, of course, every time I put them out and then brought them in again, I think I brought a few slugs into the kitchen with them as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. And I think actually quite a lot of those planters, and that's a thing to keep an eye out in sort of reclamation yards, all the sort of vintagey nice shops. We've got a few around us here. Is you can actually put them in lots of different things. Yeah. There's so many different things you can put them in. Even like these lovely old marmalade jars. You could, if you get that grit right at the bottom, and you don't, and maybe you put them outside, but it's like a semi cover over them.
You just can't let them fill up with rainwater. That is the absolute key to that, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm trying to think what it was like last year. I didn't have the craving to bring them in so much last year. No doubt I'll be really on it for next year and they won't need to come in. But I just think something that you can bring inside is really nice. The other thing I've been bringing in is branches.
Oh.
Little, so my mock orange, my lilac mock orange, which I'm looking at outside my window, just a few pieces of that and stuck in a bottle, big bottle. That's really nice.
Dormant still. It's not even showing any signs of life.
Oh goodness, mine has got 2-3 inches of growth, leaf growth on it, already. So we're quite greened up down here already. I've always said that to you. Yeah, magnolia season's nearly over.
I never made it. I never made it down magnolia season.
Although we had the classic frost just as it came out, so loads of people lost their magnolias, as happens.
We haven't had the frost for the magnolias, but what we have had is all the rain means that they all came out so beautifully, and then they just got hammered by rain and they just went all brown. Slow blossom, exactly the same. Yeah. It was amazing for about 3 days, and then it just took a deluge, and then that was it. But
yeah. It's such a shame, isn't it? And what is your in?
Well, my in is similar, but a bit different, which is that I was really hoping by this point to be able to talk to you about the ducks. But what with one thing or another, I haven't managed to get ducks yet. So lots of my daffodils and my beautiful narcissi, only ever the good ones, they leave the crap ones alone, are just being completely munched by slugs. So I'm being preventative. So you can get your daffodils before they've flowered. So just when they've got the buds and the paper covering is just starting to become a bit translucent.
Peel off.
So I am being really vigilant, and every time one of my really beautiful daffodils starts to open, I'm getting them inside to try and keep the slugs off them, because I've got so many of them which are just munched.
They are mean. So is your house filled with daffodils?
Yes. So something I did at the end of last year, which is sort of your version of the terracotta pot, is I went big on bottles and bud vases, because I think something we talked about at the end of last year as well is just when you have lots of flowers and you're doing lots of flowers and you're thinking about and living and breathing lots of flowers, what you end up doing is just little things around the house. And that was just such, I think, making it really easy. So I'm also back at work full time at the moment, so life is mad. So for me at the moment, everything is about how do I make this easy? How do I make this quick? So just having lots of little bottles, lots of little jars, lots of little lovely things scattered around on the kitchen table, on my windowsills, just pretty much everywhere, to be honest. Every day, just a couple of things. So even on a dog walk, the willow's starting to come out and it's at that perfect stage. I hate it when it goes all yellowy, but it's that perfect silver fluffy stage. So just tiny sprigs of that, just bringing them in and putting them in whatever bottles I can find. I don't even change the water anymore. It's just put something else new in it.
That's exactly in the side of my kitchen. That's exactly what I've got. 6 bud vases just along the shelf, all different varying heights, all with, funny enough, catkin. Some leftover grasses. I've still got some of those. And spirea foliage. I have to say, even my spirea foliage is coming out now. So I really, ours is all greening up. I love green. I love that new green twiggy look. I love it. Absolutely love it. So I think that's a winner. And actually, it's really achievable, isn't it? Without much effort.
I mean, I am completely guilty about making anything into an epic. Like I can make a song and a dance about almost anything. And it's rarely me being my best friend.
Yeah, exactly. I see things slightly differently when you pick 1 or 2 little items as well. I don't see this overall massive display that you want to do this beautiful flower arrangement, which is lovely. But actually, you almost see the individual thing for its complete beauty when you just use one branch, doesn't it? Yeah. It just stands out. It is. One also should be careful about how big one goes with branch work, as I have realised. If you have a busy household.
On the kitchen. Even magnolia, just a massive branch of magnolia. Yeah.
I love it. I haven't done it this year. I feel a bit annoyed really because I did miss it. It just, like I said, it came and went quite quickly in a soggy week, probably. That is quite good. What about your out? What have you been doing outside? Because obviously we have been hibernating inside in this dreadful weather, but surely you have been out, haven't you?
Those who don't know, I have just not quite doubled, but I've added a bit of land to my kitchen garden. We've just got the garden next door. So I have not done anything with that thus far, mostly because my husband has been saying things like, really? Like, we've got quite a lot on, and are you sure? And things like that. I'm afraid he's away for a week. He's working away this week. So I was straight out there with my pegs and my string. Where can we put the beds, and laying it all out. So I spend a lot of my time with a pen and a bit of paper just sketching out shapes. But the moment you go outside and you actually put a spade in the ground, or you put a peg and a bit of baler twine in to map it out, oh my God, it's so exciting. So I started that yesterday.
Oh, it is.
All there is currently, if you looked out of the window over to the kitchen garden, there's like one stray bit of my pex, which is marking out the central path, which looks just like someone's left some bin bags out. It's not. It's the start of a big project. So I'm very, very, very excited about it. I've got a fence that's in the wrong place. I'm not letting anything hold me back at the moment.
No, and I think that's what's so exciting about it, is that actually, if you're starting from a really blank canvas, you can really decide how the garden works most effectively. Getting paths in is a really good thing, though, isn't it? Getting those in first, and actually building your beds around the walkway. I learned that slightly the hard way in the house that I live in now, because we changed the pathways a number of times. And then in the end, it's actually, you need the path to the least resistance to the house, if it's a walkway, obviously, to the house.
Yeah.
Now I've made that work. It's a game changer. Like, the beds can still work off it, but actually I think it depends whether your commute to your garden is your only access. That is our only access. So, you know, I love a path that meanders through a garden all day long, but actually, if that's your path to your car, do you know what I mean? You need to consider how easy that is. And path, and the actual fabric for making your pathways, that's quite exciting as well. I quite like a bit of hard landscaping.
Me too. At the moment, it's slightly soft, hard landscaping, because it's probably going to be, until we get a bit more time, it's probably going to be my pecs and bark chippings just to do that. Because absolutely like you, there is a path that goes straight from the gate where we park the cars through the kitchen garden to our back door, which is one of those non-negotiables.
Yeah.
It's totally in the wrong place. It's totally ridiculous. It doesn't make sense in terms of the two gardens being together. It makes perfect sense with the one garden, but not the two.
Okay.
And I am very much, am I doing form over function here? Am I going to try and make everyone walk 6 feet in the wrong direction to head off? Because actually what would look amazing is one really big central pathway. Top tip that I would say about paths is always make them wider than you think you're going to want them.
Oh, yes.
That's a mistake I've made. All of the gardens I've ever had, I think, is I always want to maximise growing space and the exciting bits. And then you realise you've put in a corner that's really narrow and you can't get a wheelbarrow around it.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think if you have biggish pathways, actually it makes your garden look quite a bit bigger as well. If you've got a small garden, big pathways do look. It's like changing up that slightly. It's working with disproportionate of what you think it should be, which I quite like. The eye doesn't quite know what to do with it, so I quite like the way it makes it feel. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I've had small pathways before, and this one we finally cracked and we've got right has been a much wider pathway. However, for my pathways aren't very big, because obviously, whilst I've done that very practically here, I've got obviously this piece of land, and very excitingly, we now have a polytunnel.
God, the envy.
Yeah, putting a polytunnel up in the weather we've had was quite stressful, and the land never really isn't windy where it is. Any normal breeze is like gales at this plot, so I almost can hear people like Sarah Stratham laughing at me because of having to stake things and things like that. Because I've always got away with not staking, but this is literally going to be somewhere where I definitely have to stake. And so I've done really well. I've put pathways out, but the polytunnel I went against my better judgment. I'm sure I'll probably regret it, but actually I will never admit it. And I put in quite narrow paths in the polytunnel because I could get 3 beds in. Otherwise, I would have got 2 beds in, and I just wanted to get a 3rd middle row in, which would work really well for narrow, tall growing things like sweet peas, things like that. I wish in a way, I think I would have turned into a TikTok sensation if you'd seen me actually putting a polytunnel up with these farmers and my husband, because it was windy, probably 45 to 50 mile an hour winds up there. And I was told to just hold on to the plastic whilst they went the other side to peg it, to hammer it on. And then their parting comment just as they walked away from me, holding on to this one and only side by myself, was, by the way, if it goes, Becca, it's going to end up in the field. So I had hold of it and then decided, and as quite tall, so I decided to make myself quite long. And in the end, I actually thought the best way to deal with this is to lie on it. So I lay down on the plastic and held on for dear life and just hoped that I know, trying to say to them, guys, it feels like it's lifting. But of course, in the noise of it all, they couldn't hear me. And when they came back round to get to my bit, there were a few chuckles. But we've got it down. It definitely needs, I don't know whether anyone's experienced with polytunnels, but they are better to be put up in like spring, summer when the plastic's warmer, because then you can stretch the plastic. So at the moment, I have a slightly baggy polytunnel, just mildly baggy, I suppose. But what we'll do is we'll crank it up a little bit when it gets warmer and just stretch it a little bit more so that it's up, but it's not quite finished in that sense.
It's up, but it's not taut.
It's up, but it's not taut. Yeah, I mean, take my hat off to anyone that does them. They are really difficult to do. And yeah, so it's up. And this sudden mad rush to get it, obviously, up, because I need to get all the plants out. And then I looked at what I had, like, I don't actually have that many plants to go out. But it became an obsession to get it up quickly, because as you know, missing it by 5-10 days is hugely an issue, isn't it?
It's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want to miss the window of it being up at the right time. So it's up now. I spent a lot of time going up there. There is, and I think we've talked about this before, there is this awful sort of overwhelming feeling, isn't there, sometimes on Instagram, everywhere on social media, that we have to have everything all singing, all dancing, all perfect right at the very beginning. So I'm having to have calming thoughts that this is not a marathon. No, what is it? This is not a, what is it? Not a race. It's not a sprint. It's
a marathon, not a sprint.
That's the one. It is that. It is that. And I just need to just go slowly at doing this. I mean, this is, for me, I've obviously created more than one garden for the garden gate. So this is trying to do everything without actually having made all the mistakes I've made before. But I'm sure there's a whole heap of new ones that I'll be able to add to the pile of mistakes I've made. But it's lovely. It's really nice. So out there, I've got the corn cockles in. I've got some anemones in. I'm going up tomorrow to plant freesias. How retro are freesias?
I've never grown a freesia. Never in my entire life.
When you came to the farm, I don't think you came in that time, I grew freesias at the farm, and they were, 4 foot, 3-4 foot long. It was unbelievable. I grew them really tall, and then I've never grown them since. But I do quite like a freesia for its smell.
There's a bit in Devil Wears Prada where Miranda Priestley goes in and says, "Can I smell freesias?" I said no freesias. So that's my only association of freesias.
It's funny, isn't it? I think it's a childhood thing for me. I remember them as a child. My grandmother loved them, and she always had them. And the smell I really like. Working them into the work I do, I'm not entirely sure. But I just think, going back to our bud vases again, they'll be great in a bud vase. That'd be great. Just on their own in a couple of bud vases.
They have great movement, don't they? Have great shape.
And let's be honest, I have to get them growing. And last year, I think I bought them and I found the bulbs sort of 6 months later, and I was like, that's why they don't grow, because you don't plant them. It's the thing of the seeds all over again. How many seed packets do we need of the same variety?
Well, yes,
we don't sow?
Embarrassingly, I also found a little bundle of Lily of the Valley with an elastic band around them, which were just starting to sprout. So I potted them up yesterday in the best pot I could find and apologised profusely to them. But they were still sprouting. So even though they've been sat on my mantelpiece for the best part of 6 months, they've decided that they will live.
I think
they will live.
I think we just the trouble is it goes from sitting and researching and purchasing and procrastinating to literally running through the garden. And with gardening, there isn't really a muddy middle of that. It's either, put your feet up, you might as well read a book, or I'm sorry, you've got to be out till midnight in the garden, with floodlights.
Although I was looking at some pictures just from this time last year, and where are we now? We're the middle of March.
Yeah.
We had snow, proper snow, the second week of March last year. And 3 years ago, we had that April heat wave when it was 20 degrees. So I'm not sure what to prepare for, really. Should I get ahead of myself and hope that the heat will bring everything on, or should I be cautious and keep everything under cover just in case?
I decided to put my sweet peas out because they were just looking horrific. I autumn sowed them. They were looking not great at all, and I just thought, no, I'm going to put them out. And at the same time, I bought a whole load of fleece. I think that this is a Russian roulette time of year.
It is,
and you just got to hope.
Luckily, I have enough sweet peas, I reckon, to put half of them out and half of them in.
Exactly. And, You're wise. I obviously didn't do that. I just bit the bullet and put the whole lot out.
And I would back sweet peas in a deep frost. Millie and I were talking about this in our interview for Gather the other day. Absolutely. There's only so much you can do to kill a sweet pea. It's not frost.
Well, this is it. So hopefully they're going to be much happier where they are rather than the pots. They were just completely lacking in anything by the time. They just grew. They grew really well down here, really early. And autumn sown ones are a bit of a challenge if you can't get them out. That's the trouble. So what out? Do you want to hear my out?
You're always desperate to tell me you're out because you always done something exciting. Go on then.
So I have been, because the weather has been so bad. Now, I swim. I swim in the sea. Swim in the sea all year. Swim in the sea all year round. Really love it, as so many people do now, don't they? It's really, obviously, hugely popular. But the downfall is swimming in the sea after a storm, runoff, sewage outlets, all that sort of stuff. That's obviously not so much fun. So I have been going to saunas and doing, I'm doing hot and cold water therapy where, in a sauna. And then I found a very nice place in Newquay, which I think it's called the Nordic Spa. That's what it's called. It is absolutely lovely, run by 2 people. And they've done it really well. When you just go, there's nothing I would approve on apart from maybe they offer all these teas at the end, like chamomile tea, things like that. Maybe a peppermint tea. But apart from that, such a nice setup. And you've got there's 3 levels of cold pools as well. And I have to say, for somebody that kind of needs to swim, because now I do it, and it's like anything, isn't it? People who run, if they can't run because they've got an ankle injury, they feel really frustrated. Not being able to get in the sea is really frustrating. But the spa, the sauna and the cold spa therapy, really good. I feel rejuvenated.
I just don't get it.
Are you cold listening to me? Yeah.
I'm cold listening to you. I just can't think of anything worse than getting in cold water. I get it that everyone goes on about how amazing it is, but it's not for me.
So it's weird.
Absolutely not for me.
So I apologise, it's not a gardening thing, but it is a very good balance of, given how good gardening is for mental health, unless obviously gets eaten by a slug.
I don't think Stuart and Alexander is going to be just about gardening. It's going to be what we get up to all the rest of the time as well.
Exactly. Well, you'll find me in a sauna half the week.
My out is a gardening thing, but mostly because I have been so busy in the last 3 or 4 weeks at work, I haven't had any chance to do anything else particularly exciting. So I went to Christy Ramage's garden.
Oh my goodness. I'm so envious. What did her peach lime trees look like? I remember her literally having them ordered to put in.
Put it this way, I've come home and ordered some, put them in.
I knew it. That woman, honestly, everything just looks incredible. Everything is incredible.
Christy is just one of those people that I don't know how she does it, but she just has to touch it. And something completely ordinary becomes completely magical.
That's a really good way of putting it.
100 times. She just has to do something to it and it just looks insane. So, her house was amazing. Her kitchen was amazing. The garden was wonderful. Just everything was amazing.
So I stayed there years ago because we were doing a course. We were teaching with Arnie Maynard. And I stayed there. I think it's really new to them, the house was. So it's all new. So that I think she'd done a little bit of garden at the back and she'd ordered the lime trees. Or maybe the lime trees were even in actually, but they were very young, very new. But I will never, ever forget her sitting room with the mud floor.
Maybe it was even on that course when,
I think probably was.
yeah. So she started talking about mud floors and explaining about mud. Never heard of
She
them
did.
before.
It was on the course. She came. She
And
was there.
I became
obsessed.
completely obsessed because I live in an incredibly old cottage and Mallis Farm is 1564, and we were pulling up carpets and screed and MDF and underfloor heating and all the rubbish that people had poured over the beautiful floors, but we hadn't really come up with the solutions to what we were going to replace it with. And so I became utterly convinced that a mud floor was the solution. So you can literally just dig clay out of the garden. We're on quite good clay here, so I backed myself to go and just find it. And then you just tamp it down and tamp it down and tamp it out. And you put another layer on top and you tamp it down, tamp it down. And right at the end, you put linseed over the top just to seal it all in. But she did say if it gets wet at all, you do grow weeds in it, which I thought was hilarious.
I just, did you do it? Have you done it at your place?
No, because when we took the floors up, thank God, we had these beautiful red bricks underneath. So actually everywhere downstairs we have red bricks, except in the new part of the cottage where we've got, unfortunately, poured concrete.
Yeah.
So we're just having a discussion whether or not I can finally get my mud floor, and my husband wants flagstones.
It's really interesting because my cottage has got loads of red brick. It's all trimmed with red brick around the doors and the windows. And yeah, unfortunately, somebody at some stage did the concrete floor in our house, which was really upsetting. You know, when you lift it up and you go, any minute now, I'm going to find this amazing thing.
Yeah.
I think it would have had flagstone floors, actually, but obviously somebody decided against it years and years ago.
Well, the worst of that is when we first started like chipping back what we had in the new part of the cottage, we dug up the corner and we found a flagstone and we were like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever.
One.
And then we did the rest of the house. There was one.
I know. I know. It's honestly, it's like finding gold under the floorboards, isn't it? If you find something like the flagstones, it really is. But yeah, Christie's garden, she is magical. And do you know what I love about the way she does things is obviously she really takes into consideration the landscape, which is quite rough up there, isn't it? It's pretty unforgiving where she is. And it's not pretty. What she does, what she's done with it, or what I could see she was doing with it, it isn't pretty, is it? It's lovely form and structure. And I don't know, I just love it. I really love it. If anyone doesn't know Christie, go and have a look at her Instagram. Her knowledge on structure and form and how to lay a garden out it's the part that actually I massively realise as a gardener I lack. I'm very good at planting. I'm not very good at form and structure and getting that. I know what I like.
Yes.
I know what I like, but achieving it is difficult.
Now we've got to this bit of the conversation. I had to go and cancel my out. Christie came in September, October to do garden design for me.
Yeah.
But she has been so busy that I haven't actually got a design back. And so I was now thinking, I'm going to run out of a year.
Yeah.
I know that sounds just to say in the middle of March. If I don't just get a spade in the ground now, I'm going to lose a whole year.
You will.
So I started, and now you've said all that, I need to stop. I need to wait for Christie's magic.
I think the problem is that if you don't get the structure right, the entire balance of the garden will never be what you want it to be.
Yeah.
And that comes from trees and small gardens. I mean, I've not had Christie in my garden. I've read books about getting the structure in. Every garden can have a tree and all that sort of thing. But the knowledge of what trees, or like you said, espaliering the trees. I did want to do the espalier tree thing. Desperately did. Still would love to, but haven't been able to. I watched Gardener's World actually, and Monty Don was talking about the step over apples. I literally think I am one of those people that's like a kid in a sweet shop where I just want a bit of everything. And that's the other thing that's really difficult, isn't it? It's trying to filter out the noise of things that aren't going to work in your garden and focusing on things that are really good. And probably somebody like Christie is really good at doing that. Whereas as individuals, we probably aren't very good at editing. We just want everything. So having somebody else's eye on it sometimes might be quite good. I'm sure you'd do a good job.
I think, like you, I'm very good at growing and I'm very good at planting and I'm very good at lots of the practical sides of things. But I think I'm very much of that, do you know the Ira Glass quote about the gap? between your taste. Having really good taste is a nightmare, because if you can't produce something that you know is good, you just are in this sort of miserable middle ground of not really loving it. And I think that's probably what would happen. I have great taste. Like, I really know what I like, and I'm able to look at a garden and go, oh my God, that is just, as I did with Christie's, obviously, and what's a bit ordinary and what's extraordinary. But I don't think I've got the skills to do that on my own.
No.
I will execute it.
Yeah.
And I will build it, and I will do it, and I will grow it, and I will love it, and I will make it look amazing. But I think the actual vision, that's an art form. That's very special.
It is. And actually, in the same way that somebody has wedding work from at the garden gate, it's got a hand signature. If you like Christie's gardens and you like the way they're designed, that is a Christie design garden. That's why if you can have somebody to design your garden for you, that's why it is their handprint almost slightly on it. And if you're drawn to that sort of look, or if you're drawn to a different, for me, it's, with Christie, I'm just like, it's all about height and layers. It's all about ups and downs, about vertical stuff, which I think so many of us don't think. We think about planting, but we just don't think about those real highs and the real lows and this form, which if you've got a big space, then you can really maximize that. Oh, it's exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting. But that has been a very useful reminder, I think, of patience as a virtue. And instead of trying to lay out paths and guessing where Christie would put them if Christie was here, I think I'm going to pot up my dahlias this afternoon instead.
I think we've got to remember a garden isn't instant. It's not instant. And getting it wrong in the very first place is probably going to put you back a few years anyway. So maybe take a leaf out of your husband's book and just go, are you sure you've got enough on your plate at the moment? And wait. And it's so annoying. It's annoying when they're right. My job this afternoon is to go prick out some cosmos, which I have to say is germinated. It's showing its true leaves already.
Wow.
Yeah.
I haven't even got mine in yet.
I think there is this whole thing that everything catches up. I will be honest, it wasn't intentional. I just had 2 spots on the grow mat, on my heated mat. And I just thought, you can't not fill it. If you're going to stick the heat mat on, it's got to be full. So they made the first cut, and I will be sowing my zinnias as well in the next
weeks.
It is
a biodynamic flower day. So
when is it? I'm so rubbish with this sort of thing.
All today is a biodynamic flower day.
Oh my God.
Yesterday was roots, so I sowed a gazillion different beetroots and some fennel. A bit early for fennel, but I sowed it anyway. Yes, so I'm going wild on my dahlias, which have all been in a box in the corner. Hopefully they'll all be happy and ready to go. But yes, I'm also going to get my heat mat out, which I haven't got out so far because I've actually been starting everything inside, as in inside the house.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
Heating.
No, that is really good. That is really good. Listen, I hope you have a lovely afternoon. Enjoy your pottering. The sun is actually shining, and I really do feel like the podcast has coincided with a sunny day, which is frustrating. But I'm glad. I still love chatting to you.
Always a pleasure. Makes a sunny day even sunnier.
Oh, thank you, Grace. We'll catch up very soon. Take care.
Indeed. Bye. Bye.